I'm so excited to share that through Executive Endurance Coaching, I've officially joined Never Second's Coach and Nutritionist program. Never Second is a science-driven performance nutrition brand built specifically for endurance athletes. I've personally been using their fueling system for years in my own training, and I love how simple, precise their approach to carbohydrate fueling is for runners, cyclists, triathletes, you name it. And today, if you want to try Never Second for yourself, our listeners can get 15% off by using the code GRIT15 at checkout. GRIT 15 at checkout. Just head to never2.com and start fueling your training with intention. This episode is brought to you by Koya Performance for Life. Koya combines wearable technology with behavioral science to help you unlock more energy and perform at the highest level. Their coaches have worked with Olympians, Super Bowl MVPs, World Series champions, and other elite performers. Their 12-week program focuses on sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindset, and recovery, blending biometric data from wearables like Aura, Whoop, or Garmin with one-on-one coaching from a team that includes a dietitian, sleep coach, movement specialist, and mental performance coach. Grit Files listeners today receive 33% off the program using the code AGRANDOFF. Visit koya.life to learn more. Welcome to the Grit Files. I'm your host, Laura Reynolds, and today I have with me Aaron Lutze. Aaron is the host of Second Nature and the founder of Super Rider, among many other things, but we just had to make it a short intro. Aaron, welcome to the Grit Files. So happy to have you today and get into it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah.
There's plenty to talk about, that's for sure.
I'm so excited. And for the listeners out there, Aaron and I already talked before this, and we could probably be on here for 6 hours. So I'm really excited. So, Aaron, when I first reached out to you, the reason why I did was because I noticed that you were so integral in telling other people's stories. You do that with Second Nature. Um, and I'm always interested in the people that are capturing other people's stories. I always know, and I'm always interested to find out that person's story because there's an origin story as to why they got involved in the work that they're doing and why they're interested in capturing and telling other people's stories. So I had kind of been following you on LinkedIn and was like, wow, he's, told a lot of stories. I'm very interested in his. So I just randomly reached out to you one day and you described, which we're going to get into later because I thought that this was beautiful the way that you described it. But you were like, you know what? Yeah, I've been tinkering around this idea of the ravine that I have been experiencing. And I am interested in telling that story. So that's how we came to be connected. Um, and I'm really excited for people to learn more about the ravine in the conversation. But that's how we came to know each other. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
go ahead.
The ravine, we'll definitely dig into that because I think it's a concept that it resonates with a lot of people that are going through it right now or maybe in some cases a bit of a cautionary tale of what to expect when
Yes,
let go of the side of the pool and start swimming across to the place you want to be, right?
yes. And just the duality of like both can be true. You can be experiencing this really hard thing, and you're like, God, I don't know if I can get to the other side of it. But then in the midst of experiencing that really hard thing, some really beautiful lessons unfold. So we're going to get into that too. So I'm really excited for people to hear more about it. Um, one of my favorite things, and I knew we'd be fast friends when you said this, but you described yourself as an idiot who won't give up. What do you? And I love that because I feel like anybody who gets into any sort of competitive sport kind of has to have that mentality a little bit because that's what really drives you. But what does that mean for you?
I think one of my superpowers, more than anything else, is just consistency.
Mhm.
And being an idiot who doesn't give up is sort of exactly that. If I could just be consistent longer than anybody else, I will probably win. In so many things that I've seen out there, it's not actually usually the most talented person that
Yes.
always wins out in the end. It's the person who won't stop trying. Because if you don't stop, you typically will improve over time. Like one of the things I always say on Super Riders, like practice makes progress. And so if I keep practicing and I keep doing this thing, I'm only going to get better. It might take me a while to get better,
Right.
but if I never give up, there's the cliche, like if you never get up, you can't lose. But also, like if I don't stop doing this, at some point I'm going to figure it out and have an unlock, and something is going to come from that. And so I've seen this play out so many times in my life where I just went further and longer than anybody else. And then I got something that I would not have gotten if I had given up.
Yeah.
And so I just like hold on, just grip and try to, make it through these difficult times, knowing that this is probably going to work out. And the part that I, like I'm an idiot where I think like maybe in some cases I have held on to stuff too long
Yeah.
that I should have let go. And I think that's actually the nuance that I'm still trying to figure out of
Yeah.
like I'm holding on because I'm confident it's going to work out. But I also think that if you haven't defined success for yourself, you're like,
Yeah.
what if this does work? We always say like be careful what you're good at. So like if this does work out, you might be stuck doing this thing for a long
Right.
time.
Then what?
Do you want that? Is that what
Right.
you actually want? And so that's been sort of my litmus test now of what I'm cutting out or stopping of, okay, this is how much work it takes to do this thing. If I continue doing this, is this going to give me something that I actually want? Or am I just doing something because I'm an idiot who knows that consistency will eventually pay off? It's a tricky spot to be, but I
It
think
is.
overall, like being really specific about what your success should be and
Yeah.
then really doubling down the energy for those things. But yeah, consistency just kind of triumphs over pretty much everything at this point.
Yeah. It's so true. And I mean, you see it in start lines all the time. That's the part that where people will never really understand, especially in like a triathlon or an ultra marathon. You have no idea just by looking at the starting line who you're up against because there's no way for you to see their mind. You can see whatever kit they're racing in, you can see whatever shoes they have, however many times they jump up and down and look like they're warming up and they're serious at the beginning of the start line. Sure, but like that person who looks like they're going to blow you out of the water could have a really weak mind that day, and somebody else could have that dumb idiot brain that's like, you're just going to hold on, you're going to finish this thing. And they do. So
Yeah.
many of us idiots out there hold on and finish these really long, grueling efforts because we just refuse to give up in our brain. So it's so true. We see that all the time. You also talked about having T-Rex arms, like nobody's really helping you out. Do you think that that feeling is part of what drives you? Is like you have to be the arms for yourself?
I think there's this story that I read with my kids not too long ago, and it was about this like hen that was trying to get everybody to like plant the seeds, and no
Yeah,
one else in the farm wanted to plant the seeds. And then the seeds grew up and she needed help threshing the wheat, and nobody else wanted to help do that. And then it was, she was going through all the different steps, no one wanted to help. And then in the end of the story she bakes the bread and then everybody wants a bite
of
of it.
course. Everybody wants the bread at the end.
And I don't know, I think that when it really comes down to it, you have to do all the work. You can't expect that anybody's going to come in and help you until it's basically too late.
Yeah,
And that's okay. You have to give people a little bit of space for that too, because ultimately we all want help. But
right.
it's like the people come in after you've baked the bread most of the time, and you have to be willing to accept that. And I think that's where that consistency comes in of like,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep doing this, knowing that I'm not going to get help. When the help finally comes, I probably won't need it, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. I just love that about you. You always have you seem to be like the king of analogies, and I love that you right from the beginning. So before the business of storytelling world, who were you as a kid? Like who were you always wired like were you wired towards adventure and risk as a kid, or is this something that maybe you kind of grew into? What were you like as a kid?
I was the short kid in school. I
You really had to
graduated.
prove yourself.
Yeah, well,
You're
that
like,
was the thing where, my friends all got into mountain biking, and I was a good 6 to 8 inches shorter than them.
yeah,
And I physically was not capable of keeping up with them.
yeah,
And I ended up pursuing a different discipline of mountain biking because I love mountain biking. I love watching the mountain bike movies with them. I love reading the magazines with them,
yeah.
but I physically could not keep up. So I ended up going a different path where I learned a sport called trials, which is like rock climbing on a mountain bike. And what makes you a good trials rider is not physical
Oh,
strength, it's actually technique. And so this was sort of my way to be like, there is another way to get to that same place, and I'm going to find my way around, and I'm going to learn these techniques that are insanely difficult at the beginning. But then once you learn these things, everything gets way easier. And that obviously plays into mountain biking, and it made me a
Yeah.
faster mountain biker so I could keep up with them eventually. But I basically like had to find my own way through to be able to do the thing that I ultimately wanted to do. And so, I think it sort of taught me trials as a sport is really challenging, but what it forces you to do is take these like really difficult things and break them down into 50 little pieces. And
Yeah.
then you work on each one of the 50 pieces and then you put them back together and all of a sudden you can do this amazing thing on a bicycle. I think that the mindset that comes with having to learn in that way has probably been one of the most important things that could have happened to my entire life, my career, my approach to things, of being able to take basically a giant picture and break it down into all these little puzzle pieces and just focus in on the one thing at a time. And going back to the idea of consistency of like, if I just work on this puzzle piece and get it just right, then I can stack another puzzle piece and then another puzzle piece. And so I think that really kind of set the tone for me. So while in the moment I would have told you that being the short kid and unathletic at the time was
Yeah.
probably the worst thing that ever happened to me,
Yeah.
in the end, it ended up being kind of a gift because it forced me to find a different approach to this whole thing. And it's really kind of instilled the mindset that's gotten me where I am today.
It's funny you bring that up because immediately as you started describing that, I'm thinking about my 8-year-old daughter and like how heartbroken she would have been if everybody else made this team and she didn't because of size or athleticism or whatever. And that mentality as a kid is really hard to comprehend. Like that concept of like, yes, this might feel earth-shattering now that you don't get brought into this thing that all of your friends are doing, but maybe it's because you're meant to do something much greater or something different, and your contribution can be even better to the world. But like as a 8-year-old, there's no explaining that. You're like, dang it, now I have to figure out something else. So, I think that that's a really important life lesson to have learned, and it did end up contributing to what is now kind of your superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just having that mindset from the beginning and then, all the things that kind of came from that, doing a very obscure sport, like makes you a
Yeah,
different, your approach to the world is just sort of different at that
yeah,
point. And the people that come into your circle and how yeah, it's made a really, really big impact. And ultimately, where it kind of led from there was I was in college. I got a roommate just like randomly, selected.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Oh, I've seen you ride your bike on campus. Can I come out with you and film you?
Yeah.
And then we can edit the stuff." And I was like, "What's that?" And
So I didn't know this part of your story. That's so cool.
so then we went out together and we filmed me riding. And then we went back to the room and he had some editing program. And I sat over his shoulder trying to, oh, this line right here, this part right here, like use this one, not that one. And then I learned basically that semester how to edit by going out with him, where he would go shoot and then I'd try to
Yeah,
edit a little bit. And then we put a video together. And then from that point on, it was like off to the races.
yeah,
That was an arrow in the quiver of like, oh, now I can ride bikes, but I can also film and I can also edit. Now I have like even more puzzle pieces that I can put another picture
yeah,
together. It's not just about the riding. And I think that was probably one of the biggest inflection points as well, because now you have a tool set not everybody else has that you can then apply to working at a brand or
yeah.
creating your own stuff. I mean, this is well before
I was
YouTube.
gonna
I mean,
say, I don't want to age us too much here, but I have to imagine this was well before content creation and social media was really at its peak. So like to have people witness you going around the campus and filming yourselves, probably people were like, what are they doing? Like,
this is VHS era, not even
right.
DVDs. My first three videos were made on VHS, and
All of
then
our Gen Zs are like VHS. What do I,
what is
let's look that
that?
up. What is that? Better times, folks. Easier, simpler times. Um, but yeah, so you kind of that was like the start of something before it was even a thing. So
Mhm.
that's really cool how organically that happened. And like you said, you didn't know what you were getting into with a random roommate, who just happened to take interest in this really different thing that you did. Um, and you did, go into professional writing at one point.
Mhm.
But then and you've worked for a number of companies. You represented Red Bull, Abbott, Aura, but with this content background that you ended up kind of falling into in these early days, you were brought into Red Bull to help them understand how content creates culture. So this was like, again, before the creator economy ever happened or was even really a thing. So what did you see early that other people may have missed when it came to content creation and storytelling?
I think actually one of the things that probably made the biggest impact in my career at Red Bull, I was there for 12 years and I was an athlete manager. I brought in a bunch of
Yeah.
athletes from a wide variety of sports. So it wasn't just cycling, it was trail running. That's how I
Yeah.
met Dylan, who's my
Yeah.
co-host at Second Nature. But actually, one of the people that I brought on the team, and this happened pretty late in my Red Bull career,
Yeah.
maybe like the last 2 or 3 years, I brought in a gamer because gaming in
Right.
terms
I
of Red Bull
remember you
is like a
saying that.
really, really big thing for
Yeah.
them. And I met somebody locally who was like a perfect fit. And when you're working with the athletes that we get to work with at Red Bull, you're a very, very important piece of the puzzle
Yeah.
for their program as well. And you are working with anywhere from 10 to 20 athletes at a given time. And so you spend a lot of time with each one of those athletes, really helping them develop and helping build activation and programs and projects and stuff together. So I spent a lot of time with this gamer. He was a Twitch streamer, which in that era was still pretty early on.
Right.
And what I was able to see firsthand was how he was using content to create a community.
Hmm.
And the moment that really changed everything for me, Red Bull has a charity that they support called Wings for Life. It's a spinal cord research arm, basically,
Yeah.
charity. And they had taken every single one of the elite of like the biggest Red Bull athletes, like Lindsey Vonn, Travis, all these signed skis and snowboards and
Yeah.
jerseys and helmets and whatever, like the best signed gear you could possibly get from the best athletes in the world. And over a couple week period, they raised 20 or $30,000, which is not nothing. That's a substantial
Yep.
amount of money for a
Good chunk of
fundraiser.
change.
And I talked to my gaming athlete and I said, "Hey, I know you do fundraisers every now and then on your channel. Would you be willing to do a fundraiser for Wings for Life?" He's like, "Absolutely, I'm in. Let's do it. We're gonna do a full day fundraiser on my Twitch stream. Here's how we're gonna line it
Yeah.
up. I'll get my audience like all hyped for it. We'll do this thing." And in one day, he raised over $70,000. One person raised more than all the other Red Bull athletes combined because he had built this community through his content. And not just live streaming content, but also like his
Yeah.
YouTube channel and all these other levers that he had to pull through his content creation. And that was when a very large light bulb went on in my brain of not like the fundraising thing was fascinating to me and like
Right.
what a great outcome for the charity. But what that really put into my mind was like, wow, there's a way to connect with a giant community of people that really care about what you care about if you're making content that resonates with them.
Right.
And what would it look like if you took what this gamer was doing and brought it to trail running, mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, whatever? What if you took the elements of this and like put it over
Yeah.
into that? And so shortly after that, I went to all my athletes and was like, all right, we got to figure out a content play for you guys because
Yeah.
this is going to be the thing that actually changes your career. Like you can only win the world championship so many times, but content you could do forever if you do it right. And the engagement from this audience and how they back you and how they're invested in you
Oh, yeah.
is on a completely different level.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter about the product. You need to get people to know, love, and trust you in order
Mhm.
for any of this to become a thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
I
so
was
true.
blown away in that
And
moment.
a gamer
And
of all people
yeah,
to talk
yeah,
about like, hey, it's probably important that you build a community.
yeah. Yeah. And the athletes that listen to me are in a really great spot right now,
Yeah.
is what I'll say about that.
Yeah. It's so true though. When you are spectating some of these events, it's not necessarily the race that you're really spectating. You are invested in that person's story. You know about their family. You know about any of the falls and failures that they've had into success. So you're really rooting not necessarily for that person alone, but for their story. Like you want them to win because of their story. And that's built through content. So
Yep.
it's so true. Um, to go back to your job in signing athletes, you weren't just signing athletes, you were immersing yourself in their worlds. So what was important to you about doing that? And by immersing, I want to break this down for everybody. You said that you'd actually go and do these sports yourself. So you were building, credibility, curiosity, connection, but obviously there was something deeper too. Like what was important in completely immersing yourselves in this thing?
Yeah, to be really specific, every single athlete that I signed, if I wasn't already capable of doing that sport, I would commit to learning the sport. So
Yeah. Like
the
hadn't run a marathon until you met Debo, which is,
I hadn't
well,
I'd run a marathon, but I'd never run an ultra marathon
yeah,
until I met
you
Dylan.
were dared
And
to run a marathon, I think, right? Like the
yeah,
LA Marathon.
yeah, I got dared to run that one. But I had not run anything really significant
Yeah,
since. And so when I signed Dylan, I was like, all right. And I said, okay, I want to run an ultra marathon. And what a perfect way for us to build a relationship
yeah,
and build trust together to be like, I'm
breathing.
going to do what you do. But also from, I was lucky to be able to have access to the greatest athletes in the world to ask them, what kind of gear should I do? How should I train? What races should I target? Like, how should I think about this stuff?
Yeah,
And so it's almost like Neo in the Matrix, where it's like, I know Kung Fu,
yeah,
And so Dylan wrote my training plan. Dylan showed up at the race to cheer me on. And in the process of me learning to become a trail runner, an ultra marathon runner, I learned so much about the sport that we developed a much stronger shorthand with each other, and our communication shot through the roof.
yeah.
If you were just a keyboard warrior at X brand and you signed an athlete, like what does that relationship really look like?
No,
How are you going to develop the relationship?
yeah,
And so by jumping in full force and saying like I'm gonna lock in on your sport for the next 6 months. I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to physically push myself into doing it. I need your help to get there, but also like this is going to be a moment for both of us when I cross that finish line. I will be an ultra marathoner. I'm going to,
yeah,
pick up a bunch of knowledge along the way so that not only do I have credibility, but then we can have more productive conversations when it comes time to talk about projects, when it times comes time to talk about, other relationships in the sport, events that you want to go to. I'm just going to have more context to
right.
work with as we continue to develop this conversation. And most Red Bull athletes stick around for at least 10 years. So like let's set a really strong foundation for the next decade together of locking in on this sport. And so that's an example of what I did with just one athlete, but I tried to do that with every single athlete that I brought in.
Yeah,
And so that gaming athlete, what I did with that one, I started a YouTube channel as a way to, I
yeah,
already know how to play Super Mario 3 or whatever,
right.
but I'm gonna try to learn something from you, and I'm gonna start a journey, and we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna have something more to talk about beyond contract and product orders
Yeah,
and the day to day. And so it just gave like this extra dimension to those relationships while simultaneously just like adding new skills and
mhm,
insights to my own personal stuff too.
yeah.
So sort of self-serving, but also I think made a really big impact on the relationships in terms of trust and credibility.
Yeah, I thought that was so cool. Also wild when you told me. I was like, "What? He would just jump into these sports that he'd never done," which like what an athlete manager and what a way to really get to know the sport is to do it. So I
Yeah.
just thought that was really cool and I don't know how many other athlete managers are doing that out there. Um, so that's again like your differentiator and your superpower and that is kind of um how you came to develop this relationship with Dylan.
Mhm.
So you had mentioned that you kind of lit this flame for free trail, which now everybody in the running community is a part of. Everybody knows free trail. But then it came full circle and he helped you to create Second Nature. So there's something beautiful about that reciprocity is like what has that friendship taught you having run next to him and built gotten a training plan built from him like what has that taught you?
I mean, I have to give Dylan a lot of credit for Free Trail. I was on a run with him, and kept hearing him say how much he loves talk radio and
Yeah.
sports talk radio and
Yeah.
stuff, and telling me how there isn't really like a version of that in trail running. So I can't really take any
You're
major
just the
credit
push.
for.
Like, just do it, man. You should do
Yeah.
it. Why
Yeah,
not?
I gave just a little nudge,
Yep.
and some of that did come through that experience with the gaming athlete, where I was like,
Yeah.
wait, there is something here, and so that
Yeah.
really was the fuel to the fire. But Dylan had to be the one to pick up the microphone
Oh,
and to
sure.
record the pods and stuff, and obviously it's worked out really well for him. I mean, Free Trail has made such an important impact
Yeah.
on the industry. The where Second Nature really came from was the conversations that Dylan and I would have when we would talk on the phone, because we had built up the trust and
Yeah.
credibility. The conversations that he and I would have as athlete and athlete manager, it was never about like, make sure you're wearing a Red Bull hat, make sure you're
Right.
drinking a Red Bull. It was more like, hey, do you see what this brand is doing over here? Oh, do you see
Yeah.
this athlete project here? Oh, that's interesting. Because one of the things that I really tried to foster at Red Bull, because I had the opportunity to look across so many different sports. I mean, I think there's like 140 athletes in the US across over 100 individual sports or
Yeah.
disciplines specifically, that you would see like what somebody was doing in snowboarding, like, oh,
Mhm.
wouldn't it be cool if you did that in trail running? Or you'd
Yeah.
see somebody on mountain bike and like, oh, they should do that in skate. And so this idea of like cross pollination was a really big thing for me.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
when
even
Dylan and
Dylan,
I,
he's like a lacrosse
yeah,
background.
yeah, I
So
think he
even
was like a,
Dylan had that.
I think D1 lacrosse. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always had these conversations that really were rooted in this idea of cross pollination. And
Yeah.
that was what our phone calls were when I was at Red Bull. And even after I left Red Bull, about like, hey, check this out over here. Oh, did you see this one? It was just sharing stuff back and
Yeah.
forth. And Dylan was like, you know what? We should do a podcast together that's basically just this phone call.
Right. Just
Like,
set a
let's just,
recorder out. Yeah.
yeah, just make a thing where we're just sharing stuff back and forth and riffing on what's happening, and just having conversations about where things are at, and what we would like to see, and just sharing ideas back and forth. And so that was really kind of the impetus for Second Nature. Um, you know, the thing with both Second Nature and Free Trail, again, coming back to it, is consistency.
Yeah.
Every single week since we hit record, there's been a podcast, and it just keeps coming out, and we keep finding other stuff to talk to, meeting new people to talk to,
Mhm.
sharing new ideas, bringing, people out. I think one of the things that, if I also try to think about my why at Red Bull, it
Yeah.
was never about anything other than trying to be the 1% extra for the athletes that I worked with. So
Yeah.
when I was getting to know Dylan, it was in service of like, how might I find the extra 1% that I could bring into his world? And in that case, for him, it was like, what if we could build on this podcasting thing? What other ways could I support you to give you this like plus 1%? And I tried to take that same approach with all the athletes that I was working with, trying to identify what is the plus 1% that I can sort of bring to the table to like help you out. And if I think about Second Nature, it's still kind of the same mission for me, at least.
Yeah.
A lot of the episodes we do, we try to make it as useful as possible to the audience. It's really as tactical as we can make it, to say like,
Yeah. There's a lot
okay,
of business nuggets in there and like
yeah,
marketing and branding and all of that.
yeah. So if I can be the 1% extra for the person that's listening to that podcast, or be the extra 1% boost to the person that's on the podcast. We've had people on who have had like, business outcomes from being featured on the pod. That for me is like actually what success
Yeah.
looks like, is just how can I be a plus 1%
Yeah.
for the people that I want to support?
Well, and that's kind of, I feel like, and we touch on this soon, but that's kind of how I feel like you're doing it for the love of it and not necessarily for the monetary gain or whatever. You really do, what fills your cup is seeing somebody else experience some level of transformation off of something that you've helped guide them towards. So that is so cool.
I think that's probably the running theme all the way through
Yeah.
everything that I've been doing, and for better or worse,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like,
You just have to wake up every day and be like, I love this. I do. I love
yeah.
this. I'm doing it because I love it.
I mean, it really is sort of the driving force
Yeah.
behind it. And that's what makes it so tricky to balance out sometimes the monetization stuff, because you're like, I also need to figure out a way to make this
Sure.
viable so that I can keep doing this thing.
Hmm.
At Red Bull, it was really straightforward because you have a salary, you have
Right.
your all the benefits that come with having a full-time job. When you leave a full-time job, a lot of that certainty kind of goes away. And so the rebalancing of that stuff can be a lot trickier to handle.
Sure. So true. I want to get back to this whole concept of the ravine, these unexpected transitions that come along with the career that you're in now. And that really was what like pulled me towards wanting to know more of your stories. When you mentioned this ravine, I loved that phrase. So how do you define that for people that might not know what you mean?
The ravine is the chapter that you're gonna skip over when you're successful. The ravine is basically like, oh, yeah, I quit my job to go into podcasting and
Mhm.
YouTube, and like it totally worked out. And here I am with 160,000
Yeah.
subscribers, and like this is my full-time thing. I just ride my bike all the time and talk to interesting people on the internet. And yeah, it totally worked out. The ravine is the part that you completely skip over. Uh, Either like that your brain skips over it or you just
Mhm.
intentionally don't mention all the difficult stuff that you had to go through to get there.
Yeah.
And, for me, I think I was sort of lucky in that I wasn't forced into this ravine. I
Right.
made the decision, but I went from one side of the ravine being in a very stable job,
Yeah.
saving up resources, knowing that it was going to not be an immediate turnaround, that like I was going to be making the same amount of money immediately afterwards, knowing that this was going to be an investment from my side. And so I had to do and be disciplined financially to kind of build up a little bit of resource so that I could really focus all in on this. But then, like everything, you make the call, you quit your job, you decide this is the thing I'm going to do, and that last paycheck clears, and there's not another one after that. The next, you
Yeah.
know,
And the
rent
scramble's
payment,
real. You're like,
yeah,
shit.
yeah, and you see that number that you saved up just going down, down, down,
Yep.
down, down, and you're doing the work the same that you've been the entire time.
More
And
probably
yeah,
in a
oh, way more
way.
work.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're under stress because you're like, okay, is this gonna work?
yes.
Because most of the time, you know, you don't know right away if it's going to actually work. And I think a lot of people in the back of their mind are like, well, but even if it doesn't work, I'm going to take everything I learned and apply this to the next full-time job that I get. And that's a fair, absolutely fair thing because I think the lessons that you learn in the ravine are really, really valuable.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the stuff. Even at Red Bull, when I got there, I had actually run my own agency, sort of,
Yeah.
creating content and stuff before that. I had been through another version of the ravine, and that put me way ahead of my other
Oh,
coworkers there who had just worked, college, internship, worked at this brand, worked at that brand. Now I'm here at Red Bull. I was like, no, I did the college thing, worked, and then I did my agency. I've been through a ravine already. And so I have more context and more stuff to
yeah.
pull from than ever. So I think actually going into this latest ravine was fueled by the fact that I had done it once successfully and did take that information
Yeah.
and plug it into a full-time job.
I think
This
the same thing
time,
about like a DNF. Like, there are so many races that I've finished well, and like you feel great because everything went according to plan and you fueled right and you felt good. But that's usually not where most of my learning happens. My
right?
learning happens in a DNF where I'm like, gosh, what did I miss in my training plan that I could have honed in on more? Or what could I have changed about my nutrition? Or what could I have done differently for this to have gone differently? Or how could I have responded better to an unexpected condition like rain, like cold, like snow, whatever? But it's the DNFs, it's the ravines that give you that I guess, tenacity to be prepared for the next tough thing.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned from this ravine that I'm finally starting to climb out of is that I think we all collectively have a belief of like this thing can work and this is what it can look like. This is my vision of success. And we're correct on that point, but we're always incorrect on how long it's actually going to take for that to set in, whether it's how long it's going to take to get there or whether how long it's going to take for everyone else to accept that and come along for the ride. I had a friend who started an agency. He'd worked at Red Bull with me. He worked at Toyota before that. And he was like, "This is great. I've worked at two massive companies. I have so many friends that work at all these places. I know that my agency is going to provide a service that both those
Yeah.
groups need, and I'm going to be totally fine. I'm going to walk out of this building and come back in on Monday and pitch all my stuff, and I'm going to have so much work right out of the gate." And what ended up happening is no one gave him work from either one of those brands, and he had to go hustle and build the agency with a bunch of new people. And then about 3 years later, all the people from Toyota and Red Bull came back like, oh,
Yes.
you were serious. Oh, well, yeah, let's get you on this retain, get you doing it. And it kind of goes back to that story I was telling earlier of the hen making the bread. It's like, oh, you were serious about this. Like, yeah, now let's get you in. And it's like, well, now I'm already busy doing this stuff. Like, I don't need your help, you
Right.
know?
I actually have that same conversation with a lot of my coaching clients because a lot of my coaching clients that I work with are looking to leave corporate and go and do something in the entrepreneurial space. And we always come back to almost every single one of them is looking for some level of permission, some level of buy-in from people in order to make this move. And I'm like, here's the deal with breaking out of what everyone does, right? You're not going to get permission a lot of the time because people are either fearful of what you're doing because they would never take that sort of a risk or they don't understand it yet. It doesn't make you wrong, but you're going to feel wrong in that moment because you don't have people that really get it when you bring it up. And it might be that you're so far ahead that that's the issue. It's not that what you're wanting to do is wrong or insane. It's just they have not yet comprehended fully. And then when they do, it's kind of like a smack in the face. You're like, see, I told you this 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That
so
that's the part
yeah,
where I feel like I'm going insane sometimes too, being like, I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty
yes,
sure this is the thing. I don't understand why they don't understand
yeah,
it too. Like, how are they not getting it?
yeah,
Here's the numbers, here's the stuff. Like, why is this
yeah,
not connecting? And then right at the moment where you're just like, then somebody comes in and like,
yeah,
oh, hey, wait a minute. No, this is really good. Like, I'm
yeah,
like, I've been telling you this, but
yeah,
you need to have, I feel like some of those people, those are the hands that pull you out of the ravine finally of being like, oh wow, the thing you've been saying is totally true. You were serious, you
yeah.
know?
I want to talk about something that you and I talked about before because I think it's important for people that are going through this type of ravine situation. I feel like that it might help for them to hear this. But you built something that outwardly is very successful. You know, you've got a ton of episodes out. You're running your own, brand as well. But you admitted that there are quiet moments where you still wonder, is this working? And I think so many people feel that, but they never say it out loud. So, what do those moments feel like? And you talked about like when you're not going to these events, it's quiet. And even though you've had some top names and influencers that would suggest, like, all right, you're really doing this thing, it's working, you would still have quiet moments where you're like, mm. Is this? So, what do they feel like for people that might be experiencing them?
Yeah, it's funny, right? Like a lot of my time is spent either speaking into a microphone, looking at my computer in my house, or out in the woods, speaking into a microphone, looking at
Yeah,
a camera. And I'm not surrounded by the thousands of people that are listening to the podcast or
right.
watching the videos. And the I think one of the toughest things is like, okay, first of all, my why is because I'm trying to add that 1%. And so I have to keep that in mind. I'm not doing it for the validation. And I think one of the things I heard recently, Ryan Holiday was I think he posted this on Instagram or something.
Yeah.
He was talking about sort of the different ways that he gets validation. And he was talking about how public validation is only a tiny percentage of everything he does. So when he writes a book, for example,
Mhm.
what are the different gateways that give him validation along the way? Oh, someone asked me to write a book, a publisher, whoever, that's,
Right.
a chunk of validation.
Right.
And then the next thing was like, I did the research and I learned a ton of stuff. That's even more. And then I wrote it down. I wrote a chapter. That's even more. I created a a manuscript for a book. Even more, I delivered that manuscript. A book got published that I wrote. And so by the time you get to like someone read my book, someone published a review of my book, that's such a small percentage of the pie that you've already gotten like 99% of what you actually need out of this
Right.
energy, out of this
Right.
effort. And so I've been trying really hard to just think about all the things that I'm doing where, you know, uh, a comment on the internet or a message from somebody who heard the podcast, like while they feel great, that's also not the reason why I should be doing this
Right.
stuff. Now, that's a lot easier for me to say than it is in practice. And so to really answer your question, I think, there are these moments where, you would expect that thousands of people heard this
Yeah.
thing and I haven't gotten a single message about it.
I know. It's
It
crazy
is,
how that happens. I have people come up to me all the time and they're like, "Oh, I love that episode and we've been listening." And I'm like, "Well, I would have never known." Like no one
yeah,
said anything.
yeah, yeah. And like that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people really understand like our world of
Yeah.
creating content and putting it out into the world. And the people who do reach out to me are other people that do that because they know how much that
Yeah.
means.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of people that are listeners to a podcast or people that watch, YouTube videos
Yeah.
or see you on Instagram or whatever, I don't think that they understand how far those things actually do go. When you get a
Yeah.
compliment from somebody, you get a message from somebody, it means a lot. It really does
Yeah.
because they
And
are
like we
not,
blow each other up. If we're in this space together, best believe I'm sharing your stuff everywhere. I'm tagging you in it because I know that that exposure is the thing that's going to take you to the next level. That is the thing that's going to maybe monetize it for you. But for anybody else that's in that space, I don't know, it's really hard to gauge too, like how much of blowing this up and resharing it becomes annoying and then you get silenced and you're canceled or they mute you, then it's like it's a tough balance.
I think a lot of people just don't know, what actually matters too. For
Right.
YouTube, for example, like I
Right.
will always click on the link of
Me
a
too.
sponsorship thing, or I'll always like let the ad play out on YouTube. So even though it's like maybe 3 cents for my buddy who made the video, it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's gonna help in some
Yeah.
way. Dylan and I always go back and forth, like, because he sends a free trail newsletter and I send the Second
Yeah.
Nature newsletter. And we always like message each other like, hey, you opened and clicked, right?
Yeah.
That's
It's
like our
so true
first
though.
thing.
And people that aren't in it do not get it. So it's so true. And I leave reviews where I can. I leave stars where I can. Any of the things because I get it. It's totally true.
And I think people just don't know to do that kind of stuff. I don't think it's a
Right.
malicious thing by any means.
No.
I just think they don't realize how much a 5-star review will actually help your
Yeah.
podcast get more scale or a reshare or any of that stuff. And yeah, it makes a huge, huge difference. But
So
then
true.
if you ask people to do that, then you seem like, oh, you're, asking for
I
likes and
know.
subscribes. And that's kind of not
And
cool either. So
it feels a little cringy. Like I never know.
yeah,
It's really hard to navigate. To ask your friends to leave a review, you're like, oof, I don't
yeah.
know. So it's tough. It's really tough. So for anybody listening, we would love the reviews, the reshares, the clicks. We really would. Um, I feel like this is a question that nobody in entrepreneurship really wants to answer out loud, but I'm going to ask it anyway because that's what we do here on Grid. But do
By all
you think
means.
that creators and entrepreneurs secretly grieve the stability that they walked away from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
At the same time, at least in my world right now, I also recognize that the things that come along with what I'm doing, the instability is a trade-off for all the things that I could not do
right.
if I had a full-time job. The amount of time that I actually get to spend with my family, the trips that we get to take,
Yeah,
I would not have enough PTO to support that. And so the
right.
quality of my life has skyrocketed,
Yeah.
even when the uncertainty has also skyrocketed.
We
But
talked about that
ultimately,
during our prep call. It's like, what would have done? Because you said then, I struggle with that question sometimes. Like, would I still do this? Knowing what I know now, would I go back and do it again? And sometimes you don't know how to answer the question. And I feel like that changes daily for me.
yeah,
I think it
yeah.
depends on the day. But what would have died inside you had you stayed at corporate? And I think that is what keeps me in the direction that I'm going now, because I do feel like I would have sacrificed so much of my creativity. I would have sacrificed the ability to be able to talk to people um, that get to share their stories and somebody else feels seen. And to your point, like I don't care if I have 10 followers or 10,000. Just like you said, I'm doing this because I love that I now get to be in a place where I get to share other people's stories so that somebody else out there can learn from it and change
Yeah.
their life based on it. Um,
I I
yeah,
think one of the things too, when I was at Red Bull, I mean, that's in my mind, and I'm of course biased, but being an athlete manager at Red Bull is probably one of the greatest jobs you could ever have.
yeah, I have like FOMO thinking about it. It's such a cool job.
But during that time, the reality is, after a couple years in that job, I was questioning myself, like I should be doing something more with
Yeah.
my life. I should be challenging myself. I should be creating something. I feel like there's stuff I should be doing. Even with the best job in the world, I still felt like there's more I could be doing. There's stuff
Yeah.
that I should be putting my energy in. I just don't know what that is. I want to follow a passion, but I don't know how to like really make that thing happen. And I wrestled with that for a really, really long
Yeah.
time. And the YouTube thing kind of I had obviously had a history of making videos, and I realized how much I missed making videos because at Red Bull we've got Media House. They make the videos for you. You
Right.
just have to worry about the athlete and the project concept.
No, you
I
like the
wanted to
dirty
get
pieces. You want to get in
yeah,
there and do it yourself.
yeah. And so when I started editing again, it was like, oh, that's right. I kind of woke up a little bit of like,
Yeah.
this is the thing that I really miss doing, and I want to do this again. I love making
Yeah.
content. This is so fun. And so one of the things that I've recognized now is that I don't have that feeling of I should be doing more. I'm missing out on something. I
Yeah.
absolutely feel like I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't question myself anymore. So, with all the uncertainty of if this is the right thing or if this is going to work, yes, that still exists on a pretty regular basis. But what doesn't exist is like, am I living to my full potential?
Yeah.
Am I fulfilling that need to do what I'm supposed to do? That's completely gone. And I have to remind myself that whenever I have these other questions that creep in.
Yeah. And I just wanted so badly for people to hear that is like this whole thought that one day you make it to the point where that voice goes away. That's kind of an unrealistic expectation. There will always be the question of like, should I stuck with the stability because
Yeah.
it's safe, right? That's what 90% of the world wants is that security and that safety of a known paycheck every day. Um, but I listen to, I don't know if you've heard of Alan Watts, but he does a lot of motivational speaking, and a lot of the times it's to song. And I listen to him when I run a lot of the time. And he has one, it's called What Do You Desire? And he talks about, forget about the money. That's what we need to be teaching our kids early on is like, if we had to ask you right now what you would want to do if money was no object, what is the thing that you desire most? Because there are others out there that desire that same thing. And eventually, if you do good long enough, if you do the thing that you love long enough, it will draw the attention of the others that like to do it. And eventually, that profit likely will come because people will start to invest in it because you're representing a much bigger community, to go back to that, than what you may have known was out there. But it takes somebody being brave and doing it. So,
I think that right now is easily the best time in history for people to do exactly that.
yeah,
In pre-YouTube, like how would you have created content and put it out there pre-Instagram, pre
yeah,
whatever, pick your platform, right? It was really difficult to put your point of view or your experience out into the world. There were sort of gatekeepers to who
yeah.
could have something to say or who could be a pro athlete or whatever. The fact that I'm 46 years old and a pro athlete that's paid money to ride my bike and make videos about it could not have existed most likely a
Well, no one could
decade
have
ago.
found you. Now,
Right.
you get to see people's stories because they're posting their runs on Strava or they're posting their runs or biking or whatever on Instagram. And I mean, I even see it in like The Voice. The talent now on The Voice is substantially better than it would have been 10 years ago because of just the exposure that people have. They can listen to somebody and discover them a lot quicker than they ever could just by being able to see them.
There was a conversation I was having with Alan Lim from Scratch Labs, and
Yeah.
he said to me, talent is not rare, but opportunity is. And
Yeah.
the way that I responded to that was I 100% agree with him, but I also believe that we have the ability to create our own opportunities. And of
Mm.
course, for me, when your only tool is the hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Okay, cool. Content, 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 right?
Yeah.
But also, content has created opportunities for millions of people all around the world
Yeah.
to be able to pursue the thing that they love. And if you were going to pick up an extra skill, whether it's podcasting, short form video, long form video, written word, I mean, there's so many different ways to basically raise your hand to be in whatever field you want to be and contribute in an interesting way.
Yeah.
There's always a way that you could start the process. Now, you don't need to just like quit your job right now and like
Right.
only focusing on it. But that's the beauty of content. You can usually make a lot of this stuff on nights, weekends, mornings.
Yeah.
I mean, the first 3 or 4 years of Super Rider, I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going to film stuff in like a small warehouse that I had
Mhm.
got my hands on.
Yeah.
And then I'd come home, take my kids to school, go to work, pick kids up after school, put them to bed, edit. Like I found
Yeah.
these windows to at least like get a running start at
Yep.
everything so that when I was ready to pull completely out of the corporate world, I had a foundation that I could
Yeah.
build off of. And I think that's one of the other benefits of content. Number one, you can find an audience and build in literally anything you want. If you go through the Instagram Explore page, there's some wild communities of people
There
out there.
are.
And
And
so you have this ability to build it from scratch and learn as much as you can in the process and then create your destiny, basically.
it's so true. Um, if someone listening feels stuck in their own ravine right now, what would you want them to know?
Uh, I mean,
So many things.
the only, I mean, the thing is, like for me, the answer was just to keep going
Yeah.
because it's only going to continue building momentum the more you put into it. And for me, getting signals where because I think this is also part of it, right? If you had a corporate background or whatever, you still
Yeah.
exist on LinkedIn, you're going to get messages from, recruiters or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, I took it's like how you use the fuel that you have, right? And so every time I got hit up by a recruiter for a job posting or whatever, I use that as like a sign from the universe that I must be on the right path.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or wrong,
I do the
the
same
fact
thing. It's
the
so
fact that the
true.
universe is trying to pull me out of
Yeah.
this ravine and make me stop what I've been doing
And Lord
feels
help me
to
if I get the message at like 11:11. I'm like, oh, it's a sign.
I should stop what I'm doing right now and go take this random job because I could just like go back to it and I could, you know,
Yeah.
like that to me, I use that as a sign that I must be on the right track if the
Yeah.
universe is trying to derail me on this one.
Yeah.
And so I always like whether this is right or wrong, I try to like repurpose every sign as a signal to like keep pushing.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is like make sure that you understand what success looks like. We talked
Yeah.
about this earlier, but like make sure that whatever it is the thing that you actually do want to be doing, be
Yeah.
careful what you're good at and be focused on the things that you're chasing. Don't do 50 things hoping that one of them is going to stick. Like really lock in on the thing that you think is going to make the biggest impact and look for congruency. I think that was the biggest shift for me was I was doing a lot of different things trying to make like, okay, if
Yeah.
one of these works, I'm going to be okay. And then I had this shift where I was like, everything I'm putting my energy into needs to be congruent. This has to be bringing value to that. I think about it
So
almost like a,
true.
a flywheel, right? And
Yeah.
if it doesn't fit in that flywheel where everything is building on the next thing, then it needs to pause or it needs to go. Like you never need to stop anything in
Right.
forever. You can always bring it back in at some point,
Yeah.
but just hit the timeout for a little bit and put your energy into the most congruent
Yeah.
stuff.
Because all of us
And
get a little ADD like that. Like, I think that's also a common thread in entrepreneurs is that we do have these really great creative ideas. And it's like, I don't know. that Orange County when Jack Black is like, I've got all these crazy ideas, you know, and that's how my brain feels sometimes. But to make them all make sense together, you have to really be kind of thoughtful about that because you need to do it in a way and put content out in a way that it makes sense and that the audience makes sense and that it lands in the right place, or else it's all gonna just get confusing for people. So it's so true. Um, Aaron, I feel like I could talk to you for 12 hours a day, and we could just go on forever. But I want to make sure we leave time for people to get a hold of you. If they want to talk to you about Super Rider or watch your content there, or if they want to watch your content with Second Nature or maybe be a guest on Second Nature, how can they get a hold of you?
Honestly, the best way to do it, of course, I'm on LinkedIn and on
Yes.
Instagram and all that stuff, but actually, the best place I think to have a conversation for Second Nature, we have a Slack channel. It's this
Okay.
community of people who are in the outdoor industry, and everybody that's there, whether they're in the running industry, cycling, whatever, and even if you're not in the industry, but you care enough about it to be listening to Second
Right.
Nature, I guess. Uh, we all get together in this Slack channel and we have really interesting conversations. And of course, it's Slack, so you can just DM people
Right.
if you have something that's relevant or interesting. We have everybody come in, do a quick little introduction of who they are, and the the community there. I mean, it's really really strong. A lot of really incredible people that are in there. It's in the show notes of like all of our podcasts and all that stuff. And I just think it's one of the best places to sort of meet like-minded people, and I'm obviously in there. It's probably the best place to get the job done.
Yeah, I love it. Aaron, it has been awesome getting able to talk with you again today. I'm excited for people to hear your story, and I'm excited for them to learn more about why you tell the stories of others. I just think you have a really cool background, and I can't wait for people to hear it. So thank you for being a guest on the Grit Files. I'm your host, Laura Reynolds.